And dear children, in this last session of My Lord the Baby, we'll discuss more about themes, symbols, and motifs. In the previous two sessions, we discussed about the author, background of the story, and story setting, and we analyzed the story also. But in this, based on that story, we'll discuss themes, symbols, and motifs. So, the story focuses on these themes: unconditional love between servant and child. His love was so unconditional that his Raicharan's love was so unconditional that he forgot his place in society. His love was so unconditional, like a biological parent. A real parent or a biological parent, he loves his baby or her baby without any condition. But here, being a servant, he loved the baby without expecting from it. So, that is clearly visible here in the story. And sacrifice and guilt as key emotional forces. Sacrifices. He sacrificed his personal identity while loving the baby, and he sacrificed his own identity, his comfort, his desires to take care for the baby. And he forgets his own self. And key is another emotional force here. Guilt is another key emotional force in this story. And he feels guilt for crossing boundaries. After losing the baby, he feels guilt. That river marks his boundary. Until then, he never understood his place in the society, and he felt guilty after losing, crossing boundaries after losing the baby, and it separates him from society. And that's why he wanted to correct his mistake. That's what a redemption through selfless action. He wanted to rectify, he wanted to correct his mistake. By nurturing his own child, he goes back to village and he raises his child, and without being known to that child, he brought him up, and finally he sacrificed his own baby to his master. That's nothing but redemption through selfless action. Blurred boundaries of class and emotional identity. We see blurred boundaries of class. In his deep emotion, he did not know his boundary. There was a boundary between him and his master, between him and his child, the child. But he forgot that boundary and he loved that baby unconditionally. So these are some important themes that we study in this story. And symbols in the story. The baby is very apparent. It is symbol of innocence and devotion. And river, when we take river in almost all literature, we use river for it refers to the flow of time. It's a constant flow of time, because life is like it's a continuous process, always moving. Life is always moving like water, nothing remains still. Again, his life also moving. He moved, he crossed the river to his village from the city. Again, he had a baby and he raised his own baby, his own son. So that indicates river, again indicates it's a constant flow of time, and that nothing stays forever, which says. And another important symbol in this story is Rai Charan's journey. A journey from city to village, or village to city. And here what we understand, the inner transformation. There was a transformation in Rai Charan. He understood his identity. Until then he did not know in his emotional love, he forgot he was a servant. So there was a transformation that occurred in Raicharan, and there was a moral struggle. Struggle here nothing but a conflict. Moral struggle means inner conflict between what is right and what is wrong. Loving a baby, being a servant too much, and like a parent, is it right or wrong? Or the conflict between duty and emotion. So these are some important symbols in the story. And when we take motif means a recurring object. It often keep appearing in the story. In literary work, it may be an image, or it may be an idea, or it may be any sort of thing which appears recurrently in the story, or in literature. We call it as a motif. Here servant, throughout the story we see the servant master relationship, and parent child bonds are shown in different forms. And parent child forms, parent child bonds between in different forms. Parent child bond, there was a bond between a parent and a child. Unconditional love we can see between a child and a parent, but there was a distant love between a parent, biological parent, and a child in this story. But there was a very much affinity, very close bonding between the emotional parenthood. That is nothing but Rai Charan's love towards that baby. And identity and belonging questioned throughout. Identity and belonging, who he is, whether he is a servant or not, he should understand it, but he forgot it in the beginning of the story. Loss and recovery repeating as emotional arcs. Loss. He lost two times. Oh, first time he lost the baby he loved so much, and second time also he lost his own son. Lost in the sense he sacrificed his own son for sake of his master. And he lost and recovery. First time he lost the baby drawn into the river again. From that situation he got back, and he nurtured his own son. That is the recovery again, recovered from that situation. And these are some emotional arcs in the story. And when we analyze, when we appreciate the story, really appreciable it is. And maybe the language, it conveys deep meaning and emotional depth. The characters, portrayal of characters, we can appreciate even the portrayal of characters. Such a wonderfully characters are portrayed so beautifully. Even emotional and characters are psychological characters are discussed very clearly, delineated. And characters are relatable and authentic characters are given in this story. That's what in the genre itself we discussed a realistic one. Real life characters are discussed here. And critical appreciation of part 2 story, because we divided the story into two parts. And second part, the journey. Second part, in the second part we discussed Raicharan's journey after losing the baby. And here also in this part we analyze, we appreciate Tagore's mastery in showing conflict, inner conflict of a character. And the narrative subtly critiques social hierarchies. Narrative very subtly criticizes the hierarchical system, uh, that moment in 20th early 20th century colonized period. Open-ended climax. Story has an open-ended climax, and it covers universal themes like love, sacrifice, guilt, and identity. And because of all these elements, story is really appreciable and appreciative story. And so we studied everything in the first session to the last session. From the first session to the last session, we covered each and every point, and go through it once again. And thank you for listening and watching this video.